change to the BCA relates to slip resistance. And for many years now, the BCA contained requirements for stairways, landings and ramps to have slip-resistant, non-skid or non-slip surfaces. However, the BCA did not define these terms or how they could be measured. The ambiguity created uncertainty and led to disputes about what was considered acceptable. For example, what does non-slip, non-skid or non-slip really mean? An Australian standard for the measurement of slip resistance has been in existence for many years. However, it wasn't considered appropriate for referencing in the BCA. This standard 4586 slip resistance classification for new pedestrian surface materials has now been revised, and as a consequence, the BCA references this standard. And this has been quantified, these vague terms, as being part of an ongoing quantification project that was run by the ABCB. Should be noted that while the old standard was not appropriate for referencing in the BCA, to reduce the impact on industry, test reports that were based on the 2004 edition of the standard issued prior to the 1st of May 2014 will remain valid. However, all test reports that are done after the 1st of May 2014 must be based on the 2013 edition of the standard. This is explained in a note in the schedule of the reference documents, which also explains the classification of V, W and X in the reports based on the 2004 edition may be considered to be equivalent to slip resistance classifications P5, P4 and P3 respectively in the 2013 edition. In Volume 1, the changes to quantify slip resistance, non-slip and non-skid occur in D210 for pedestrian ramps, D213 for stairways, treads and D214 for landings. Despite the use of the term slip resistance in the performance requirements, changes have only occurred in the deemed to satisfy provisions. And these changes will have no impact on the slip resistant provisions related to disability access, as any change to disability access must be undertaken as part of a review of the premises standard, which is scheduled for completion in 2016. For Volume 2, these changes will also only occur in the deemed to satisfy provisions, specifically at 3.9.1.3 for stair treads. Since the decision was made to adopt BCA 2014, the VBA has recommended that in Victoria, this change to Class 1 buildings be deferred until May 1st, 2015, to allow industry time to get prepared to deal with this new requirement. Regulations to vary the requirement, being the Building Regulation Amendment National Construction Code Regulations 2014, have been prepared, but we are just waiting for their introduction, and we're hoping that that will be done by the end of the week, or end of this week or next week. But as soon as they have been approved by the Governor and Council, we will then advise everybody via VBA mail. So in the process, if you get an application currently for a building permit that requires this provision, the building surveyor can use Section 10 for the time being until that goes through. As I said, we're hoping it will be through by the end of next week. So, but to explain the changes applicable to Volume 1, let's look at D2.13. To quantify this requirement, the vague statements non-slip finish and non-skid strip have been deleted, and they have been replaced with references to slip resistance classifications found in a new table, D2.14, which are to be determined by testing in accordance with the newly referenced standard AS 4586. As was the case before, treatments for slip resistance on stairway treads can be provided either to the whole tread or to the nosing only. In both cases, The new provision requires slip resistance classification not less than that in the new table D 2.14. Table D 2.14, practitioners must determine the appropriate slip resistance classification for the tread or the nosing based on the condition the surface is likely to be subject to over the life of the building. This could be wet or dry. As an example, a wet surface could include a surface that's exposed to the weather, being an external stairway, or a surface that on occasions becomes wet, like a stairway or ramp in an entrance foyer. Therefore, if you choose to apply a slip-resistant classification to the whole of the stair, tread, and determine it to have a dry surface condition, the slip resistance classification must be no less than B3 or R10. These values relate to the newly referenced AS 4586. This example only relates to D213 in Volume 1. For ramps in Volume 1, the slip resistance classification is dependent on the steepness of the ramp. To demonstrate compliance with these requirements, practitioners can either use tested materials, which as noted before can be based on the old edition of AS 4586 if issued before the 1st of May 2014, or practitioners can demonstrate compliance using in situ testing. Typical examples of products can be seen on the slide, subject to them being in compliance with AS 4586.